Hey, ShineOners, how's it going? Jim Cremella coming at you with another edition of Shot of Espresso. And in this edition, we are going to start talking about how you can create your own strategy, what things you need to test, and we're going to start in Facebook. And I'm actually going to adapt this a little bit. My original intention was to go through Facebook from a testing strategy to um, trying to get it to scale from your testing strategy out to the initial will it hold water, and then going into bigger scaling. So it's sort of like, how do you create your own strategies instead of relying constantly on someone else saying, here, try this strategy, here, try this strategy. And instead, what I'm going to do is, not only are we going to talk about testing phase in this week's edition for Facebook, next week I'll go in and we'll start talking about testing in TikTok. We are finding more consistent success on TikTok than we are in Facebook right now. So, as a teacher for you all, I want to give you the most relevant information, the most fruitful or profitable information I possibly can. So instead of going in from the testing phase, which we're still going to cover because it's still Facebook and Instagram are still giant players in this space, we're going to go into TikTok as far as what we're doing to test there. And we're going to focus on kind of a slant on, as you were preparing for and starting to test things for Mother's Day. So it could be mom's evergreen, and then use that for Mother's Day is kind of where we're going with it. So you start testing the mom niche, and now there's sub niches for mom, right? There's mom. If you want to do the UK, there's mum, but then there's also bonus mom, mother-in-law, future mother-in-law. So there's a couple of different nuances to mom that you may want to find, or may find a little bit more profitable than using just mom. Mom will be the biggest audience, obviously, but it also will have the most competition. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in with how to create your own strategy testing phase for Facebook ads. And I'll go through here. Now, I'm not going to read, as always, when I'm walking you through the guides here. I'm not going to go step by step or anything like that. I'm just going to kind of go through an overview, and then obviously you'll have the link to download this guide, and you can read it as much as you want. But prior to doing an ad test, and that's on any network, whether it's TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or Snapchat, Google Display Network, you name it, you have to have certain things in place first before you're going to get success. Number one, you have to have the right product. So for us as print-on-demand jewelry folks, or metal wall art decor, we have to be pushing the right product to the right market at the right time. So if you are just starting out, spend a lot of time figuring out what phrase you should use. Go back through, there's a ton of content in this group. There's a ton of content out there for you that we've done for free that talks about best practices for message cards. I think we did a whole 1 or 2 series on Coffee with Michaels about that, where we talked just about what a message card should look like, what's the best phrase length, how do you write a phrase, how do you get phrase. There's a ton of info out there in this group, so please go back and reference that. But you want to make sure that you're really confident in either the message or messages that you're wanting to test before even spending any money on ads. Because let's face it, if you have the best ad set up on the planet and you have a bum product, something that's not it's not done well, it's not polished, it doesn't look high end, it's not going to sell, right? And the opposite is true too. You could have the absolute best product on the world and a mediocre ad setup will still yield profit. Okay, so product is the most important. And if you're doing message cards, then the phrase is the most important. If you're doing graphic design, maybe it's not so important. Maybe it's an upload. Maybe you're doing a pet upload or a mom upload, or maybe you've got you're doing a siblings upload where it's like you finally got you're going to send to mom a picture of all of the kids are finally together, all the grandkids. So there's a lot of options out there. We have a lot of different product types, not just message cards. So if you're looking to sort of take advantage of Mother's Day or Evergreen or what have you, and you're trying to avoid as much direct competition with those that have big budgets that are going to push high volume. Maybe you want to carve out a smaller niche. Maybe go with a graphic product instead of message card. Maybe go metal wall art or watches, and focus on a sub niche of that. So something along the lines of mother-in-law or future mother-in-law, or even mom to be. Anything that's not necessarily just mom, might be a great sub niche for you to go after that not everyone's going to try and compete against you. So some ideas for you as far as products go. So that's product type. We just talked about that. Product page is also important. You have to make sure, what I have found actually is sort of order of importance. Price. So you want to test price and make sure you know what price works best for your audience for each product type. Price is the biggest determining factor whether or not someone adds to cart or not. Second is how easy is the page to navigate? Is it got a lot of clunkiness to it? Is there a lot of text, or is it really simple for someone on a mobile device with their big thumb to push the buttons, right? Like we want to make it mobile optimized. So make sure that your product pages are doing that. Now, if you're on the platform or if you use ShineOn's product templates, we do that for you. Like part of my week every week is going through CRO testing, analyzing the data that is on the tests that are running, coming up with new tests. So you can rest assured that if you're using our standard product pages, you're getting that setup taken care of for you. If you're using your own, totally fine. Just make sure, best practice. And then finally, page load speed, which realistically is not a minor thing. If you have a really slow website with a lot of apps, and it's taking a long time to load, that will affect your add to cart rate. People will bounce because they're not going to sit and wait for a web page to load anymore. If it's not instant, like 1 to 2 seconds instant, they're going to leave. So if you have a GTmetric score of like 4 to 5 second full content paint, you're probably missing out on quite a bit of conversion. Then and only then are we talking about ad creatives and then ad setup. And ad setup is what we're really talking about today. We've talked a good deal about what type of ad creatives to use as far as images or videos. Again, as a quick recap, use our renders, take your own pictures. We have just added a whole bunch of UGC related renders for images. You could take those images and make them into a slideshow video on some of the bigger networks like TikTok or Facebook and Instagram. You can upload still images and produce your own slideshow video with them. Just make sure it's super high quality. It doesn't look unprofessional, unless it's like a pure UGC unboxing video. If you want to do that, then make it, use your phone and shoot someone opening and get a genuine response. Those types of things work really well. But when you're testing, we even test with images. So don't feel like, oh, I have to have a video to start testing. If you do, or if you want to start your product testing on TikTok, take your static image render and make it move or pan and zoom a little bit. Just add a little bit of an effect to it, just enough, but allow them to read whatever it is you're trying to sell them. Because remember, it is the phrase that pays. Okay, so ad setup is what we're going to be focusing on. And realistically, in the test phase, we are currently testing with ad set budget optimization on Facebook. We're not testing on campaign budget optimization. If we were, we would be running a 1-1-1 configuration. So one campaign, one ad set, one ad. I don't honestly personally don't like giving Facebook a lot of control, especially during the testing phase. I want to control the testing phase. If you are running the way that we do right now, we've got one campaign is one design in one niche, and then we have our 10 to 15 test audiences that we're testing as ABO setups within the different ad sets, and then we have one creative going in the ads. Now, I do test quite a bit with dynamic creative ads, and that is set in the ad set level. So that's where you can upload 1 or 2 or 3, up to 10 different images or videos. My recommendation is if you're going to split test things, split test either all images or all videos. Don't mix videos and images together. Facebook will ignore the videos. At least that's what my experience has been over the last few months. So in the campaign, we are just using it as a file folder. You can see the little icon as a file folder right up here. And that's what we use it as, just a place to organize. That's it. And then all of our data is going to be in the ad set and ad level. So you can see all this is no categories, auction, off, off. I don't ever use Facebook's A/B test. I think it's terrible. But that's just my opinion. So variations in the different tests. What can we do? So you can test your budget. This is just the default. Facebook wants you to start testing at $20. You can test as low as $1. You can test as high as your heart's content. I wouldn't recommend testing really above $100 an ad set if you want to really buy data quickly. And you're only going to run traffic, in the best quality time period, which for us right now is between 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That seems to be our most profitable buying window on Facebook. We do run on our test daily spend. Our average daily spend budget is $50 to $60. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to let the ad set spend all $50 to $60 during test phase. I will let it run about $10, and depending on what the CTRs are, I will either let them continue to run or I will turn them off, because if the CTRs are terrible, there's no point in running them anymore. So I do have manual cutoffs during the day. Now, I know that my farming method says we'll start testing at $5 and not test big budgets, and then the seedling phase is that. Right now, for the evergreen phase of the year, I tend to test with bigger budgets instead of the small, because I'm having a hard time transitioning them from smaller budgets to bigger budgets profitably. And what I mean by that is we'll find something, an audience that works well on small budgets, and then we transfer them to bigger budgets, and the profit doesn't follow suit. It goes away, the performance dies. So I figure let's start testing and have those tighter controls while the budget's available to spend. So instead of running a $5 ad set for 2 days, I run a $60 ad set for a few hours, spend $10, and make the same conclusion. Does that make sense? So hopefully it does. Just because you budget higher doesn't mean you have to spend it, right? It's just what you're allowing Facebook to spend if it was performing well. So that's budget. You can do daily budget and lifetime budget. Lifetime budget we don't use a lot, and I don't use during testing. That is something that used to be very profitable for me, lifetime budgets, but not since early part of 2020. Since then, things have not really worked well on lifetime budget, but it might be something worth testing because honestly, there's not a lot of consistency in Facebook today. That's why we're doing a guide on TikTok audiences and testing structures and things like that next week, because we are finding a little bit better consistency there. So those are budgets. Then you have your audiences. We just finished doing a guide. If you did watch Coffee with Michael last week, you'll see the custom audience section here. That's where you would plug in either your custom audiences or your lookalike audiences. And then here's your interest audiences. And a lot of us don't have this box anymore. Facebook is removing this box. So if you have it, you're lucky for a little bit longer, but then it will be going away. So just letting you know that. Detailed targeting is anything from interest to behaviors to demographics, whatever is in there. One thing that most people don't test right away, they use auto placements, is the placement feature. So right above this would be a radio button that says auto placements. And then this is manual placement. So you can see all of the areas that you want to test. I have been testing and finding more success by doing manual placements and removing audience network. So just keeping it on Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger. If we're testing on and we find something that's working on TikTok, we'll actually come back then to Facebook and only run Instagram stories and reels. And that's it. Everything else we turn off. Okay. So that is another area for you guys to test, is the different audiences and things like, or the different placements. What I will say is if you're testing placements, and you turn off feeds because you want to test something else, and then the thing that you want to test requires the feeds to be turned on, that's not a good test. Just skip that test and try something else. Because if you have feeds turned on, then 70 to 80% of your traffic is going to be that anyway. So you're not really going to get a valid test for any of the rest of this stuff. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Optimizations for delivery. When we test lowest cost. That means we're leaving this blank. That means we're giving Facebook full control over our budget. We will spend the budget, but it'll be consistent delivery, but we have no control over the bids. When we get into scaling techniques, that's where we'll enter a manual bid, typically on some form of multiple of our active CPA. So if we're running at a $35 cost per purchase, we might start our bid at 35, and then we might go up to 55 or 65, as much as 2 times our CPA is $70. And then testing a range of bids to see what gets traffic, and then performance. And then there's bid cap and cost cap. Now, one thing we haven't tested in a while is doing this during a test phase. So what I would recommend is running this lowest cost to establish which audience is going to perform the best. And then before scaling, do a couple of these other tests to really refine what's the best setup for this audience. And by that, for this test, I would say, okay, I've identified, let's say it's parents all, just as that's like the de facto moms type of thing. So parents all. And then you're targeting for mom, parents all. You find that that's working on lowest cost, duplicate it, and now do a bid control and do a bid range of tests. So if your cost per purchase that's tracked on Facebook, let's say it's $35, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, and just do a range and see where do you start getting traffic, A, and then B, what's the performance when you start getting that traffic. Then do a similar test to cost control. So same type of bidding structure, scaling it up. And then it doesn't have to be big budgets. It could be $25, $50. And again, you're not married to spending that budget if it's there. You're just telling Facebook, this is what I'm willing to spend in a day. You have the power to turn it off whenever you want. You just have to actively be able to manage it. Okay. So then identify what's the best bid type for your audience in this niche, in this time of the year. Through your test, is it lowest cost, is it bid cap, or is it cost cap? One will identify itself as the clear winner, believe it or not. If it's lowest cost, you're just gonna have to resign yourself to smaller budgets. For whatever reason, whenever you scale past $200 on a lowest cost, and then sometimes it's $100, the performance really dies and never really does what you want it to do. Never has, probably never will. That's why they have bid cap and cost cap. So you're saying, I'm willing to spend $500 on this, but I'm only willing to bid $45 to get the impression. If I can't get it for $45, just don't put me in the auction. That's why it's called cost cap. You're controlling your spend by that bid. All right, advanced attribution settings. Right now, we run everything 7 days after 7 days click, 1 day view. About a year or so ago, 1 day click was doing better for us. So if you, again, this could be something that you're testing. I found an audience that works on lowest cost. I then determined, example-wise, that bid cap works the best. Now let's test what attribution is working the best. I would try 7 days click, 1 day view, and then 1 day click, 1 day view. If you're running videos, and then just 1 day click and run that as a test, see what it is. So now I know that this audience is working best with this type of bid type is working best, and now this attribution is working best. Now I've got my setup. The only thing left to test is budgets. How far can I test the budget? How far can I grow this? How fast can I do it? And that's kind of our process. It's not rocket science. It's just figuring out in the ad set settings, what are all the different major levers we can pull to get better performance. So you do smaller budget spend, even if you're testing $50, $60, we will test lowest cost in audiences to figure out what audiences are going to interact with the product the best. Then we try to refine not that audience, but that ad setup to make that audience more profitable for us. So then you take the audience that works the best, test the bid style that works the best. So that's lowest cost, bid cap, or cost cap. Then do the attribution settings. Now then you go into graduate it for your scaling phase. And scaling phase is really where we start testing. Is ABO setup the best? Is CBO the best? Is it a 1-1-1 CBO? Is it a 1-3-1? So it's one campaign with 3 duplicate ad sets and 1 ad per ad set. Is that working the best? And that's kind of how we work through that process. Okay, so hopefully that has helped. There's a lot you can test. There's a lot of money that you can spend on doing this. Keep your controls very tight. Um, it's worthwhile to go through each test for each product because let's say you've identified one audience that works well, but you also decided or determined that, let's say, cost cap is working better than lowest cost, and 1-day click is working better than 7-day click. So I've got this audience working with cost cap and 1-day click. Well, now I scale that up into a little bit bigger budget. And now I go, well, let me go back to the second best performing audience that I tested and see if this other setup, cost cap, 1-day click, will also perform. And now you've got another scale, right? And then you go back and you find a couple more audiences and you're building data. And as you building data, you're creating those custom audiences, and now you're able to scale. And do you see how we can scale it again and again and again? It's just, yeah, find another thing out, you add it, and you test one more thing. Once I figure out what ad structure works well as far as bid type, base budget, attribution window, now I go, okay, it worked well for this audience. Let me try it with that audience. And then you just slowly build it over a few weeks. And then once it gets a little bit of virality and some base data in it, then you can get a little bit more aggressive with your scale. All right, so hopefully that helped. That's how I'm currently running our testing on Facebook and Instagram. I'm starting to refer to them separately because part of me is like, maybe we should run independent tests. So we run one set of audience tests on Facebook and one set of audience tests on Instagram, and then do that same stepped process, but on each different traffic channel, because we are seeing Instagram performing better than Facebook, especially in the Reels placement. So if you have something working on TikTok, try it on Reels. If you have something working on Reels, try it on TikTok. And again, next week we will cover similar thing to this. I'm going to focus more on the different targeting options in TikTok, because a lot of the structure components are very, very similar TikTok to Facebook, but their targeting options are quite a bit different. So we're going to talk about each section of those, and I'll give you some examples of things that I would try or are going to try as we go into the Mother's Day season. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for watching, and stay shiny out there, guys. Till next time. Bye now.